Thank you. Clerk, would you please read the announcement and call the roll?
April 12, 2016. Please be advised, this meeting is being taped for video and audio broadcast. Assisted listening devices are available. Mr. Bonifant.
Here.
Mr. Porcello. Mr. Hempstead.
Here.
Mr. Kimmel.
Here.
Mr. Sacchinelli.
Present.
Ms. Melendez.
Here.
Mr. Sarasis.
Here.
Ms. Bowman.
Here.
Mr. Sims.
Present.
Mr. Kites.
Here.
Ms. Maggio.
Present.
Mr. De Palma. Ms. O'Toole-Gianderco.
Here.
Mr. Igneri.
Here.
Mr. Livingston.
Here.
14 present.
14 present, we have a quorum. First item on the agenda is the acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting of March 22nd, 2016. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Sims moves. Any corrections, deletions, additions? Mr. Hempstead.
Yes, sir. Mayor?
This is a good one.
Wait a minute.
Page
Page
10.
10. I thought it was page 9. Page 10. Under, let's see, we gotta go down 1, 2, 3, the fourth paragraph down.
Where it says Mr. Hempstead?
Yes, said that he was glad to put in a non-resident parking fee and hopes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you. Glad you cleared that up. Okay.
Presents maybe a different meaning. That's with your gardener.
Any further corrections, additions, deletions? Seeing none, all in favor of the minutes as amended by Mr. Hempstead?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So Mr. Kimmel abstains. Thank you. Public participation.
We have none.
There is nobody signed to address the Common Council. Mr. Mushak, I see the hand. I see your hand. Would you like to address the council? Yes. Please step forward. Say your name for the record.
Good evening. The Corporation Council said there was no public participation tonight, but I think he was joking.
Just when I saw you got up.
I figured. I'll keep this brief. Mike Mushak, 50 Elmwood Avenue. I'm going to speak in favor of the Cecil Group memo for the approval of the final design of the underpass area. I've worked as a member of the Bike Walk Task Force with GGP for many months on pedestrian and bike improvements for that area, and I think that they have really provided an amazing transit or evolution from the original plan that was submitted to where we are today, and I would urge you to approve that. It certainly provides a lot of pedestrian and bike improvements in the public realm. Is pretty amazing. I'm sure many of you are already familiar with the plan. I also want to speak in favor of Chris Torrey as our new tree warden. I've known Chris a long time. He's a great, dedicated city worker. He makes the city proud. He's one of the first city workers I ever met when I called him a long time ago when he was dealing with some drainage issues on Elmwood Avenue. So I'm sure you will approve that. He'll make a great tree warden. And also the, let's see, what other thing was there? Sorry. Public capital budget. What's there to say? You've gone through all of the ins and outs of that, and it's pretty amazing what you are still providing with a minimal tax increase. I think it's pretty awesome. So hopefully that'll go. And then finally, the senior tax relief. Congratulations to the ordinance committee. That's pretty awesome as well. Senior disabled tax relief. So there it is. Was that under 3 minutes?
That's great.
Yes, it was quite under.
You got a gold star.
You just went over with that gold star.
With comments like that, he should be given 10 minutes.
There is nobody else signed up. Is there anybody else that wishes to address the council? Seeing none, we will close the public session. Thank you. Under the mayor's section, resignations and appointments, the aforementioned appointment of Christopher Torrey for tree warden. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Bonifant makes the motion. Any discussion?
Just be glad to, I'm sure other people have something nice to say about him, and I do too, but I'll let it go because others will.
Okay. Any further discussion? Mr. Igneri?
I just want to mirror Mike Mushak's comments. I've known Chris for a few years now, and he's an excellent city employee, and he's actually a certified tree warden, so having this appointment is very good. And this past winter, people were speaking his name as he kept the streets plowed. We thank you.
Done a great job, and I think Mr. Mushak wants him to be a tree warden because he probably also has something to do with bike lanes, maybe. I'm not sure. Any further discussion? Mr. Sims?
Yes, Mayor. I also like to say I know Chris for pretty much my entire life. Chris has always been a very hard worker, has always been committed to the city, and I couldn't think of another person that would be a great fit to serve in this capacity. So I certainly support that.
Thank you. Further discussion? I also want to just say thank you to Chris because in the time that I've been mayor, and we've had some pretty good sizable snowstorms, and I can't recall getting so few complaints because he does a great job and really dedicated to his position. I know he'll bring that dedication to the tree warden's positions as well. So seeing no further discussion, all in favor of Chris Torrey as a tree warden, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Carries. Congratulations. Under reappointments, we have two reappointments to the Water Pollution Control Authority. First one being Darren Ostafine. Do I have a motion? Mr. Igneri?
I've worked with Darren, and I'd say Frederica as well, on the water pollution control for some time, and they do a great job. Darren is really on top of everything, and he's keeping our water pollution down.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carries. I don't see Darren here, but congratulations to him for volunteering again. And the last one, the reappointment to the Water Pollution Control Authority to Frederica Bikakis. Hey, John. Mr.
I'd like to move that. I've known Frederica probably since I was 5 or 6 years old, and she's always been someone that's been a Norwalk person, and as she's gotten older, she's dedicated herself to Norwalk. She has a local business, and I can't see anybody, she's probably great and will be great and will continue to be great in that role, serving the city.
Thank you, Mr. Sarasas. Any further discussion? I too have sit on the Water Pollution Control Authority with Mr. Igneri, and I can attest to the knowledge and the dedication of both of these individuals. They both bring a lot of knowledge to the process. So, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Mayor's remarks. We just have a few. As you know, we just named the Norwalk's first poet laureate the other day in celebration of National Poetry as well as Jazz Appreciation Month. There's a lot of fun events that are happening in the public library. So if you get on the websites, you'll be able to see a lot of events involving jazz and poetry, and it's really entertaining. Sunday, April 17th, will be the unveiling of a street sign, renaming Berkeley Street in honor of Pastor Sadie Miles. It will be named Pastor Sadie Miles Way, in addition to it's an honorary renaming. A celebration is scheduled for 2 p.m. at 2 Berkeley Street. Everybody's invited, and I'm sure that the congregation would love to see you. Unfortunately, I'm out of state for the weekend and will not be able to attend, and something I would have looked forward to. Our citywide cleanup was postponed due to stormy weather last Saturday. It was not the best day to have a cleanup, so it's now scheduled for Saturday, April 23rd, because as I said, this weekend I will be out of state. We look forward to joining the many teams who will be working around the city. The theme is obviously Let's Keep Norwalk Beautiful, So if you want to put together a team, I'm inviting the council members to select a section perhaps in their designated area and help clean up the city. After a winter with a lot of high winds and things, I've noticed a lot of debris and litter around, and we can help make Norwalk beautiful. On Sunday, April 24th, from 11 to 3 p.m., there will be a Hands for Life event at Rowayton Elementary School. We had one at the beach last year, and it's another opportunity for the public to learn how to save a life in only 15 minutes. Come join us as we learn hands-only CPR. You don't need any reservations, but I can tell you that it's really, really a worthwhile event. If you just learn this one technique, you're increasing the chances that you may be able to save someone's life, and it might be a loved one. So 15 minutes of your time is going to be well spent. Last week, Norwalk unveiled its new branding, The Sound of Connecticut. And a lot of hard work went into it with our group, our task force, our advisory committee, along with the Zunda Group, a local marketing firm. And I think from the feedback we've gotten that it's really quite well received. And the brand was necessary to help reposition Norwalk, and our visual brand and identity system will become recognizable of Norwalk's progressive and connected vibe. Our brand strategy will influence and shape the way the community and others think and feel and respond to our city. I want to thank the volunteer team who made it possible, led by Liz Stocker, our Economic Development Director, and as I mentioned, the Zunda Group. It took about 10 months to come up with this, and if you're leaving tonight, and as you came in this morning, or this evening, you probably saw some of the posters downstairs of how the brand will be used in different ways to represent different, the arts and different departments within the city. So I think we're all proud of what the group has come up with, and again, I want to thank them very much. Last year, we had Norwalk Day at the state capitol. This year, it's April 26th, but that's also Presidential Primary Day in Connecticut. So please remember, make your voice heard, go out and vote. So that is all that I have. Mr. Kimmel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, under general council business, we have the report from the Charter Revision Commission. First of all, as you may remember, they had a deadline. It was April 5th. They worked hard. They had several public hearings, 3 or 4 of their own meetings, and they didn't meet their deadline, and council members received their report on April 5th. We will have it. We're all looking at it, and I think they did an excellent job. I'd like to publicly thank them, Chairman Bill Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Jerry Petrini, Steve Kehoe, Michael Witherspoon, Yvonne Hernandez, Mary Roman, and Glenn Iannacone. They did a great job. They volunteered to do this, and we owe them a lot. I'd also like to thank, from our legal department, Diane Belch-Jacobson and Barbara Tischia did a wonderful job. They responded to any questions I had and almost immediately. They worked closely with the Charter Revision Commission, and I doubt whether the commission would have been able to do everything they did in so short a period of time without their help. And I'd like to thank our Corporation Counsel, Mario Coppola, for allowing them to devote, to really focus, to allow these staff in our law department to make sure that the report was done properly. So we're fortunate to have them helping us for this. Now, I'd like to point out something that I noticed after receiving the report and talking with some people. You know, we had a Charter Revision Commission that had seven people, 4 Democrats, 3 Republicans, and it was truly a bipartisan effort. And for a number of years now, we've had fairly bipartisan politics in Norwalk, and I was thinking back to the last 3 charter revisions we've had. Going back into the 90s, when we changed the way we craft our budgets, our operating budgets, there was some bitter differences between the Democrats and Republicans over this issue. What we do now, when we deal with our operating and capital budget, is a product of what happened in debates in the 1990s, okay? And I remember those. And then we had around, a few years later, around 2000, we began the discussion of revising how we elect our Board of Education members, going from a citywide system to the system we had now. Again, there were bitter differences. At that point, even among members of the Charter Revision Commission, okay? And both parties had their own views on this. There was a little less hostility, but there were divisions a few years later when we tried to revise the charter to have our town clerk an appointed official instead of an elected official to view the town clerk as a department head. And that one was voted down. There was some divisions over that, but they weren't party-based divisions at the time. So I think we're really fortunate, and as a city, our politics have come a long way. They're truly bipartisan, and I hope when the council, as we move forward for the next, I guess, up until about May 24th, that we can work in a bipartisan manner to move this report forward. And hopefully, during the elections next fall, all the candidates on both sides will come out and support this. So we have a big push from Republican candidates for the State House, for Democratic candidates for State House, and for other candidates, whether it be for the registrar of voters or whatever. They all push for whatever we end up deciding, okay? So I think that's extremely important. Before I get to the item on the agenda, I want to just lay out the timeline that I think works. Remember, a lot of this is governed by state statute, how long we have before we make decision X after the last public hearing, things like that. So what I'm proposing is a timeline that goes like this. The first public hearing that the council will hold will be May 2nd, Monday, May 2nd, 7 o'clock in the community room. For those who can't make the May 2nd meeting and wish to weigh in, we schedule a second public hearing 1 week later, May 9th, 7 o'clock in the council chambers. The next night, May 10th, which is also the night of the council meeting, we will have a workshop beginning at 6 o'clock. This is a workshop with the council members and the charter revision members, where we can ask them whatever questions we feel necessary to discuss with them, why they did this, why they did that, why they formulated this, and so on and so forth. That's a workshop. May 10th, council chambers, probably about 6 to 7:30. And then May 24th, our second council meeting in May, that's when the council will either approve the report or make recommendations to the commission to change the report. So what we're dealing with is a timeline that begins tonight when we accept the report and goes to May 2nd, first public hearing, May 9th, second public hearing, May 10th, a workshop with the council and the commission, and May 24th, the council will actually deliberate and vote on the report. Now, what we have on our agenda is something I think we formally receive it. Having this on the agenda, me making the statement, gets us past the formal reception, the acknowledgement that they made their deadline, and we have the product of their labor. So we receive report from the Charter Revision Commission, we acknowledge that, and where it says, and schedule a public hearing for May 2nd, 7 p.m. in the community room in Norwalk City Hall. I'd like to amend that and then just put it out there for a vote. I'm not sure we have to vote for it, but let's vote on the amendment, and then we will vote on the dates of the public hearing, just to be conservative about this. So I'd like to amend what we have on our agenda to read as follows. Receive report from Charter Revision Commission and schedule public hearings for May 2nd, 7 p.m. in the community room of Norwalk City Hall, and May 9th, 7 p.m. in the council chambers of Norwalk City Hall. So I'd like to offer that amendment, and I'll move is there any discussion of the amendment? Hearing none, all those who are okay with the amendment, please say aye. Okay, so now we go back to approve the two public hearings, the 2nd and the 9th. All those who are okay with the two public hearings, the 2nd and the 9th, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think, Mr. Hempstead?
I just had a question. You're scheduling another public hearing prior to a workshop.
Yes.
It seems like if there's going to be a workshop, there might be discussions after the first public hearing, or any suggestions that, are you going to schedule then a third meeting if it comes
We
back
can,
to-
yes, we have the wrench in this, what is driving the timeline is the state requirement that within 15 days after the last public hearing, we have to vote one way or the other. The 9th is 15 days from our second council meeting on the 24th. We can take, so I want it for the convenience. I know council members are very busy with their jobs, families, and everything else. So I figured if we could do the workshop, the 9th is probably the latest that we can do the second public hearing, and schedule it for May 24th. That's a 15-day, we have 15 days from the last public hearing. That 15-day window expires on May 24th, which is the date of our second council meeting in May.
You
Now,
can,
we could schedule the workshop earlier. That's no problem. We can work that out if you feel that's necessary.
I'm sorry, the Corporation Council, I guess?
Excuse me?
Well, the clarity on, it's a little bit different than when I remember in the past, and things change like anything else. So I didn't,
We're doing it right this time.
I didn't say it was done wrong. I'm just saying, usually you work backwards from the date that it has to be submitted to the state, and then figure out where your public hearings have to go by. But does your public
Excuse me,
hearing-
I'm sorry.
I just have a question. You're scheduling something. I'm just asking a question about.
We did work
So,
backwards.
you can have more than one public hearing, you have more than two public hearings.
That's right.
And you could have just one, I mean,
We
the
could have
choice
one.
here is to have,
Right, so I'm saying, from the May 5th, the second public hearing you have, you could schedule a third one if you wanted.
We have, yes, we do. When we wrote the resolution with the initial charge, we worked backwards. At that point, beginning in January, we did work backwards, okay? And we are still working backwards. And the informal goal has always been to get as much done as we can before school lets out. We do not want to be holding public hearings in the middle of July and August, okay? So right now, by having it on the 24th, if there are recommendations to go from the council that have a simple majority, the recommendations for the CRC, they have 30 days
Right.
to get back to us, okay? That gets us about to the end of school. So we worked backwards for two ways. One, we have the three ways: state regulations, enough time to get it onto the ballot, and informally to try and get as much done as we can before summer vacation and school lets out. Plus, I wanted to make it as convenient to council members as possible, and the workshop is the day of a council meeting, so it is not an additional meeting. I don't see a problem. There's already been 2 workshops and a lot of discussion. It's the same issues that have been discussed over and over and over again, not just in the workshops, not just in the public hearings that occurred recently, but over the last 2 or 3 years. These are issues we inherited over the last couple of years. The idea that we need to discuss or new things will come up, I don't think that will happen unless new issues that people want on the charter to become part of the report. That comes up. And that's something we can deal with. We listen to the public on the 9th. If they say the public, hypothetically, if the public overwhelmingly asks for X, then we can, the next day, discuss why the commission did what they did vis-à-vis X. So I think you can look at what you said from 2 perspectives. Having the workshop the day before enables us to have a much more informative conversation with the next day with the Charter Revision Commission. It works both ways. And of course, there is the possibility of using your phone, making some phone calls, talking to our legal counsel, talking to Mr. Fitzgerald or Mr. Petrini or Mr. Iannacone or anybody. Why did they do these things? I don't think anything is set in stone. Any information that you need is available through the legal department or through the Charter Revision Commission members. I think when we get to the 24th, we will have discussed this and listened and read as much as you could possibly do it. And I really don't see any reason to begin switching around the workshop so it's either before or after a public hearing. If we feel we need another workshop or another public hearing, we will decide when that need arises, not now.
if I could just also, just to give you a little bit of information about how many people attended. I was at every single commission meeting and council there. Surprisingly, there weren't a lot of people. There was a number of people from the public who attended and who spoke, but it wasn't as big of a crowd as maybe we would have anticipated. And I think the commission at the meetings all the meetings that I attended did a great job of listening to the public and also discussing the issues that were brought up by the public in their various deliberation sessions that they did. But just for whatever it's worth, I don't anticipate you having a lot of people at the 2 public hearings because there weren't that many at the 2 public hearings that the commission held, and there weren't that many people who attended the deliberation sessions, or maybe termed as a workshop, that the commission had either, for whatever it's worth, just to let everybody know.
One last point. I have been sending out information, updating people on timeline and things like that. If you ever have any questions, you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait until we have a full council meeting. You can get right back to me immediately, and we can deal with them. Okay, one way or the other. There is no reason to wait on issues such as dates or things like that. Anyway, I think we voted on the amendments. Okay, we're back to the 2 public hearings. We're making it official. Is there anything else? Any other comments? On the timeline in general, but more specifically on the 2 public hearings, with the understanding, if we deem it necessary to have a 3rd public hearing, of course we can do that. If we deem it necessary to have only one, we'll handle this properly. The important thing is that we'll figure out a way to do this thoroughly. Okay, hearing none, please raise your hand if approving public hearings May 2nd and May 9th. Say aye.
Aye.
We did that already?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I got a little bit distracted. I didn't know if the question came before or after.
That was the exclamation point.
Okay, so we did it twice. Thank you very much. Okay, the appointments. Now, we have no resignations. We have an appointment. We have, this is an appointment of Reverend Henry Floyd to the Ethics Board. Any appointment to the Ethics Board requires 11 votes. I'd like to point out that the Ethics Board is governed by a set of strict rules relating to party identification, and Mr. Floyd is a Democrat. He has to be a Democrat for this particular appointment. There is still one vacancy as of March 10th. It has to be filled by a Republican, okay? And we hope we can address that issue sooner rather than later. But here we have Reverend Floyd. Does somebody like to move his nomination?
Yes, I'd like to move his nomination.
Mr. Sims?
Thank you. I would like to just say that it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to move this nomination forward. I've known Reverend Floyd for quite some time. He's always been a man of integrity, man of honesty, and a man that always had opened his doors. He has been a steward of this city, and we couldn't have a better appointment for this Ethics Commission. I mean, he's always been very open, transparent. He's opened his church up to us. I visited him a few times already. And, you know, I say, if any of you haven't never been to a Baptist church, definitely attend Reverend Floyd's church. He gives a good word, and he is a true man of God. So this is a great appointment to move forward for the Ethics Commission.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Ms. Bowman?
Yep, and I've known Reverend Floyd since I was a little girl at Mount Zion First Baptist, and now he's a pastor at New Jerusalem. He's also the president of the IMF. I know him for his great work in the community, and he's an upstanding man, and I think he'll be great on the Ethics Board.
Mr. Mayor?
I'd like to echo the comments of both Councilpersons Sims and Bowman. I've known Reverend Floyd for a very, very long time. I've attended his services on several occasions. He's always welcomed me into his office and sat and chatted with him. Just really a great guy and a wonderful addition to the Ethics Board. And I'd like to personally thank you for being willing to serve on this very, very important board. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing none. Again, this requires 11 votes. Please, this time I'll ask you to raise your hand so I can count them. Everybody in favor of the appointment, please raise their hands. Okay, I got to assume it's more than 11.
You raise your hand?
Yeah, anybody
Okay.
opposed? Abstentions, okay. It passes unanimously. Okay, good. Okay,
We have them here, if you'd like. We have Chris Torrey and Reverend Floyd here, if you'd like to have them come down and we can administer the oath of office now.
sure, of course, and save them a trip.
Would you, Chris, Mr. Torrey and Mr. Reverend Floyd, if you'd come down, we'll administer your oath of office right now. Michael is coming down to take a picture. Congratulations, Chris.
Raise your right hand. You, Chris Christopher Torrey, having been appointed as tree warden of the City of Norwalk, do solemnly swear or affirm that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office according to your best skill and judgment, so help you God, or upon the pains and penalties of perjury. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Chris.
Thank you for your service.
Congratulations, Chris.
I need you to sign in.
And,
Reverend, if you please raise your right hand. I, Henry G. Floyd Sr., having been appointed to the Ethics Board of the City of Norwalk, do solemnly swear or affirm that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office according to your best skill and judgment, so help you God, or upon the pains and penalties of perjury. Thank you. Where's Chris?
Congratulations, and thank you.
Where'd
Reverend, you want to sign?
Where did Chris go?
Congratulations.
Chris is
Hi, Chris.
Chris, you have to sign.
I know you.
Reverend Floyd, I need you to sign papers. Here you go, Chris. Oh, this one's yours. Just sign each of them and you can keep one.
Reverend, if you're signing right here.
It's ironic, though, you got a wood chipper on.
There's two of them. Sign both of them, and we'll give you one.
You got a wood chipper on for approval for tonight. Tree warden's up, got a wood chipper.
That'll be our copy,
Thank you.
and that one you can keep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Okay. Okay, next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. It is Mr. Livingston's turn to read.
Thank you, Mr. Kimmel. I'm going to start with 7D1, rescind the February 9, 2016 resolution authorized the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with ACOM, formerly URS, for professional services for construction, administration, and inspection during rehabilitation of bridge number 04154, Perry Avenue Bridge over the Norwalk River, ConDOT Project 102-319, for a sum not to exceed $410,000 with an 80% federal reimbursement under the Federal Loan Bridge Program. 7D2, authorize the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with ACOM, formerly URS, for professional services for construction, administration, and inspection during the rehabilitation of bridge number 04154, Perry Avenue Bridge over the Norwalk River, ConDOT Project 102-319, for a sum not to exceed $460,000, 80% federal reimbursement under the Federal Local Bridge Program, account numbers noted. Item 7D3, authorize the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a second amendment to the July 29, 2013 contract with Expert General Services LLC for project number TRF 2013-1, on-call fiber optic and CCTV installation for traffic for an amount not to exceed $30,000, account number noted with Connecticut DOT reimbursement. Item 7D4A, authorize the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Layden Industries LLC for project number PM 2016-2 bituminous concrete permanent pavement repairs for a sum not to exceed $332,922.30. Item 4B, authorize the Director of Public Works to execute orders on contract with Layden Industries LLC for project number PM 2016-2 bituminous concrete permanent pavement repairs for a sum not to exceed $33,292.23, accounts noted. Item 7D5, authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order to Munchco Inc. for the purchase of one Bandit Industries 1390 XP wood chipper for a sum not to exceed $47,822.50. Moving on to item 7F2, authorize the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute any and all documents necessary to receive and implement state DECD grant in the amount of $500,000 for ADA improvements at Lockwood Matthews Mansion Museum. Item 3A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Better Homes Bureau LLC for masonry repairs of planter retaining walls at Police Headquarters Plaza for a total not to exceed $34,786,000. Account noted. Item 3B, authorize the Office of Building Management to issue change orders on contract for a total not to exceed $3,478.60. Item 4A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Better Homes Bureau LLC for masonry restoration at City Hall for a total not to exceed $126,786. I'm sorry, $126,786. Accounts noted. Item 4B, authorize the Office of Building Management to issue change orders on the contract for a total not to exceed $12,678.60. And consent, I'm asking for consent to table item 5 until the next meeting on the 26th, and this is to authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a license agreement with Marinello's Pizzeria and Deli to operate the newsstand concession at City Hall for an initial term of 3 years plus 2 one-year options, effective dates from 5/1/16 to 4/30/2019, and 2 one-year options from 5/1/2019 to 4/30/2021. Annual payments to the city shall be as follows: FY 2016 to 17, $3,600; FY 2017 to 18, $3,700; FY 2018 to 19, $3,800. On option years, FY 2019 to 2020, $3,800, and FY 2020 to 21, $3,800. That's it.
Okay, that's a consent calendar. Are there any changes in the consent calendar? Okay, all those in favor of the consent calendar as read, please say aye. Raise your hand. Say aye. Okay, opposed, abstentions? Okay, it passes unanimously. Ms. Maggio, I think next meeting you will be reading the consent calendar. Mr. Mayor, the meeting is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Kimmel. Mr. Bowman, item 7B1. That was on or off?
Personnel, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, did I miss that? Okay. Yes, okay, very good. Personnel Committee, 7A1, Mr. Sacchinelli.
I'd like to move this, but speak on the item. This is to address a update made to our merit matrix, creating a level of equality and removing some current restrictions that we have on the potential earnings of our best people. Now, this doesn't guarantee any level of increase. There's still merit-based requirements and some proper review periods and credentials that need to be met. But it does remove restrictions in the current language that allows for additional earnings to be added and raises to be applied for some of these people impacted on this current list. A lot of time was put into this to create that level of equality, and I think it was well structured and now meets and removes some of those restrictions and meets some of the needs of our employees that encourages retention of talented individuals.
Further discussion? Mr. Bonifant.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a question. What's the difference between item 1 and item 2, and does it relate to the backup of, which one is the backup referring to? One says pay plan matrix, so one says pay plan, the other one says matrix on the other part. Is there a difference between item 1 and 2? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
So I'm moving them together. They do impact each other. The matrix is the actual structure of it, and the revision is the language.
Okay. So, I guess.
We have Mr. Hibson here.
Thanks.
Would you like to step down, Mr. Hibson?
I had a question. In this, I was just trying to figure out, in the mayor's office, there's some people listed, but I couldn't figure out where the actual mayor's salary comes in with this. Is it related to this, or is that a whole nother vote on another day, or what?
So the elected officials, if I may, actual ordinance itself, the pay plan ordinance. So what happens when you adjust the merit matrix, it will eventually move those numbers. So they get, the elected officials will receive a pay raise on the December 31st of the year they're elected. So if you go to a 4-year term, the mayor and I believe the town clerk will end up getting their raises once every 4 years, when you keep the administrative raises every 2 years. So that's how the elected officials.
Okay. In other words, indirectly, we're voting on a mayor's salary, a town clerk's salary, and a registrar's salary, and they're tied to others that are listed here.
That is correct.
Okay, because I couldn't figure that out. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Or raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carried.
Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Sacchinelli, you had 1 and 2 together there.
Yeah, I'd like to move both items together.
You already did. I thought. Now, 7B2, now 7B1, now Ms. Bowman.
So I will move 7B1. This is a resolution. I'll read the resolution first. Resolution adopting the 2016 to 2021 Southwestern Region Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan update. Whereas the City of Norwalk Common Council recognizes the threats that natural hazards pose to people and property within the City of Norwalk, and whereas the City of Norwalk, in collaboration with the Western Connecticut Council of Governments, or WestCOG, has prepared a multi-hazard mitigation plan, hereby known as the 2016 to 2021 Southwestern Region Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan Update, or the Mitigation Plan Update, in accordance with the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000. And whereas the 2016 to 2021 Southwestern Region Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan Update has identified mitigation goals and actions to reduce or eliminate long-term risk to people and property from the impacts of future hazards and disasters that affect the City of Norwalk and the region. And whereas public and committee meetings were held between August 14, 2013 and October 8, 2015 in furtherance of the development and review of the mitigation plan update. And whereas the Federal Emergency Management Agency / Department of Homeland Security has approved the 2016-2021 Southwestern Region Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan update on condition of local adoption, which enables the City of Norwalk to apply for hazard mitigation grant funding. And whereas adoption by the City of Norwalk Common Council of the mitigation plan update demonstrates Norwalk's commitment to hazard mitigation and the achievement of the goals outlined in the City of Norwalk section of the mitigation plan update. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Norwalk Common Council hereby adopts the 2016 to 2021 Southwestern Region Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan update. And we did discuss this in committee. This is basically necessary for the City of Norwalk to be able to apply for hazard mitigation grant funds. And Mr. Luca is here. And I don't know if anyone had any questions. I'm not sure who pulled this one off.
Anybody have any questions on this resolution? Mr. Hempstead?
Hi, I've got 2 questions. One, in the resolution, it says they already have an approved natural hazard mitigation plan. But I didn't see a plan in the backup material for this.
Oh, you have the links, right?
Correct.
Go ahead.
The links have been provided through the process. We went through a public meeting. The links were published online. The document itself is about 700 to 800 pages. Again, it's already gone through the FEMA pre-approval process. And the existing plan has been online up to now. So from 2010 through 2015. We did not provide the entire 700-page plan for tonight. We did provide an executive summary of the plan.
That wasn't it either.
It's not in the package. It was in the meeting. It was in the committee meeting package.
Because this is a new plan according to this, is 2016 to 2021.
Yeah. So every 5 years, it has to be redone. So this is the 3rd term of it being redone. Are there any specific changes or changes that we need to?
Yes. This year we actually worked with the Conservancy project.
Are there any obligations in this, I guess, already approved plan that we're approving? Okay. Are there any obligations financially, fiscally to the city of Norwalk? Are there any obligations that we have to's kind of things? Either have to provide services to a community that doesn't have those kind of services, or are there anything that obligate us to go out and purchase equipment or change our shoreline or anything like that? I'm just,
If there are no financial obligations as part of this plan, it really allows us to, should we have another disaster or when FEMA provides funding, it allows us to apply for those funds. We're not obligated to do mutual aid, we're not obligated to purchase anything, obligated to split any funds with Westcott. It really is just so we can apply for future mitigation funds as when it becomes available.
so there's, just so I'm clear, there's nothing binding in this to the city of Norwalk. It's just a tool that allows the city of Norwalk to go ahead and apply for these grants, correct? Now, okay, if I can ask the question, does the city of Norwalk apply those grants directly to FEMA, or does it apply to the state? How does this work, or does it apply to the COTS?
As with all of our other disaster grants, we apply as a municipality to the state of Connecticut, the Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, and then they apply to FEMA directly. It's the same with all the other disaster funding that we receive. So it's Norwalk to the state to FEMA.
Thank you.
Any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carries. Thank you. Okay. Now we're on to 7C1, I believe. Mr. Kites?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to read these and then just briefly speak to them. Item 1, approve acceptance of the Cecil Group memo as approval to the final design of the underpass area for the stone collection project. It's been a long road to get to this point, but I think throughout this process, we've addressed a lot of the issues that both the public, this council, and previous and current planning committees have had with the underpass, especially from the rear of the building. They've addressed pedestrian accessibility, lighting, and many other issues that have been brought up over the last 3 years. So I'm very happy on to where we are right now with it, and that's it.
Any discussion? Mr. Kimmel?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Kites. This has been a long road, and I was pleased at the last planning committee meeting when we had discussions with the Cecil Group, and the collaboration between the architects for GGP and the Cecil Group seems to have been very, very fruitful. And what we have in front of us, interestingly enough, everyone says is a lot better than what we thought we were going to have. And so I'm very pleased with that, and I think we learned a little bit of a lesson regarding, let's bring in the architects and the engineers and let them meet face to face and start working things out a lot earlier on, and perhaps we can cut down on these extensive timelines we had for our redevelopment projects. But I'm very excited about this. I'm glad we're finally getting this by us. We're moving past some of the conditions that the council established. I believe it was late last October, right before the election, and this is a good day for the city. I hope this passes.
Thank you. Mr. Hempstead?
All right, thank you. This is far better than what we were presented back last year, September, October, by a long shot. That said, everybody knows that was on the previous council. I have no love for this tunnel, even though it's been sizably cut back, but that's.
Underpass.
The underpass.
Hey, if that's not understood, I'm gonna make it sure it's understood. But the improvements they made, the only, I would say, and I said the other night, the only part I'm disappointed and hope there's still opportunities moving forward, that they didn't use some Imagineering, i.e. Disney type things, to work more on the ceiling, because basically, even though I know there's different levels, it's a white on white on white. And maybe I thought there was an opportunity to really make that tunnel kind of blend in with an environment as a whole, holistic, and hopefully in the future, they can still work on that a little. With today's equipment, LEDs, lightings, and that, I think there's more opportunities to certainly give that a more flavor of the sounds of Norwalk. I think there's opportunities, but I'll be supporting this. But I appreciate it. It's, you know what, Mr. Kimball, you did mention trying to move things more and more quickly. If those meetings had happened with the architect somewhere last May, we probably would have been through this a little bit sooner. But I appreciate the efforts made. All right, thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Thank you. Mr. Kites.
Number 2, approve GGP's public realm plan for the Sono collection project. And I'll just reiterate a little bit. They've gone above and beyond, I believe, GGP. They've been in a lot of concessions. They've added a lot to this project. They've actually incorporated a lot of the public realm from outside to inside, which, of course, with our seasonal weather is, I believe, far better. Rooftop garden, they did that on their own. We didn't ask them for that, which is great. So I'm very pleased. And I like to say this: we've heard a lot of wild ideas of what we could do with public space, and I think GGP, and I want to thank the Cecil Group as well. They've worked great with the design team there with GGP, and they've come up with some great ideas. I'm very pleased with the end result.
Mr. Kites moves the item. Further discussion? Mr. Kimmel.
Yeah, on this one, I have to say, one part of what Mr. Kites said, I kind of disagree with. I think on this one, GGP owes us. I think the public realm that now exists is really going to be good for business, really good for business. Probably better than the public realm that existed initially in some of the renderings. So this was excellent, not only for the city, for the folks who go there, but it's going to be help the bottom line for GGP. I'm sure of it. It's really beautiful what you all came up with. It's really good.
When you say they owe us more money?
Of course, yes. Or a debt of gratitude, perhaps some free this and some
Bob
free
Barron's hair
that.
just stood on end. He thought he heard more money coming in. Further discussion? Mr. Sarasis.
Is probably the biggest opponent to them all. I'm voting yes to the previous item and this item because of the changes that were made and the huge difference that was already noted here by the people who already spoke. So I just wanted that on record, that the biggest opponent to the all is okay with these two items and the proposed changes.
Further discussion, Mr. Sims.
Yes, just to kind of echo what everyone else stated already, I was on the council when this first came about, and as well as Rick and Doug and a few other folks that are here. But I tell you, it has come a long way, and it's just I'm just excited, just not only because it's in the district that Faye and I represent, but just to actually have something really great coming into Norwalk. We haven't had this buzz or this feel quite some time, and I think that this is going to kind of put Norwalk on the map. And I have to commend all my colleagues here for supporting this and making sure that we got the best bang for our buck here. So, and also we want to also thank GGP as well.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I would just like to commend GGP. This is no doubt the biggest project ever to come down the road for Norwalk, and your public outreach was second to none. You really went out into the community, you got feedback, and you made it a community project as opposed to coming in as a developer and just saying, here's what we're going to do. Also, the public realm, the additions, they're amazing. They're going to make this not only a shopping experience, it's going to be an experience that people can walk through. I don't know of any project anywhere that I've seen with public realm areas that'll be this interesting, this attracting to people, getting people to come into the mall. So again, well done. Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carries. Congratulations, gentlemen. Mr. Kites.
I never want to see you guys again. I'm just kidding. Okay, moving on. Item 3, approve the 2016-17 capital budget of the City of Norwalk with modifications as outlined on the attached memo. Planning Committee had made 3 recommendation changes to the capital budget. First one being the allocation of funds to water course maintenance. The bulk of this funding will go to alleviate the flooding that the folks down on the Saddle Road area have been experiencing for close to 30 years, where it's been unnoticed. And I'm very pleased to be, hopefully, with this funding, and we do believe that these problems will be addressed. Thank you, Mayor Rilling. Thank you, everyone, for supporting this. Next item that the committee moved was district paving to the Board of Education. We knew a few more schools that we knew needed some more attention, those being Columbus and Cranberry, correct? Cranberry School. Right, there's currently 3 schools scheduled to be paved this year, which is great, and hopefully this money will allow us to do 2 additional. And the last item being the asbestos abatement program. We have reassurance that the Board of Ed will be conducting this abatement process plan 2017 during spring break in the month of June, so that's great. So Mayor, if you don't mind, I'd like to move this item.
Mr. Cuddy has moved the item. Further discussion? Mr. Kimmel.
First, I want to commend Mr. Cotties and the Planning Committee. They did a good job looking through all of the accounts. In some ways, this is an interesting exercise for us because it's so different than the operating budget. And I want to point out, for the record, that we are aware that the Board of Education asked for planning and design purposes for their overall facilities transformation at $3 million for that this year. And what we will end up providing is $2.5 million. But that was in consultation with the Board of Education the last few days. And they are comfortable with the $2.5 million. If there is a need for the additional money in next year's capital budget, we will be sensitive to that they were shortchanged from their perspective, $500,000 this year. But it's important to say we did not take money out of schools and the education accounts to put in other departments. We moved money from within. We moved from one Board of Ed account to another account. We took some money out of the $3 million proposal and put it into their Board of Ed paving program, and we took some other money and put it into their asbestos programs. The board recognizes that these are important programs, and so we're going to have our cake and eat it too. We're going to get more paving done. We're going to make sure the asbestos gets addressed, and when the Board of Ed needs that money, when they move far enough along where they may need the additional $500,000, whether it's later this year or the next capital budget cycle, we will address that issue at the time. So we think it spreads the money around in a way that's extremely important. When it comes to parking lots and asbestos, we're dealing with safety issues, extremely important safety issues. So we felt, and they agreed, that it was important to move the money into these accounts. Thank you.
Ms. Bowman.
And I just want to echo what the Council President said. We did distribute some of the funds from the feasibility, the study that the Board of Education wants to some other items of high need in the school system. We definitely want to make sure that if there is, I understand it's not it's a possible imminent situation with the asbestos. It's not actually airborne asbestos, so we just want to clarify that. But it's very important that we get ahead of that situation, and also the paving. As far as the $2.5 million, I know we had some concern about that in our community. Basically, I know Mr. Hamilton mentioned that whatever you want to do with this funding, you're looking to do in the next 2 or 3 months, and definitely we just want to make sure it's heard that we're not looking for anything to be done as far as a school in South Norfolk in the next 2 to 3 months, because we are definitely still in the phase of listening to our constituents to make sure that we know what we want and that is the best thing for our community. So I think if I understand from emails and different conversations that will not be happening in the next 2 or 3 months with any of this funding. and that will still be able to be discussed. Just want to make sure that is out there and said, and with that, I would support this budget.
Thank you. Further discussion? Mr. Hempstead.
Just so we're bipartisan. Chairman Kaisi, thank you for allowing the voices to move money around without any great objections. I think we heard loud and clear from Mr. Hamilton about some of our concerns about utilizing that entire $3 million by next year. But we also, I don't think we've damaged it in any way or whatever. A real shout out to Sharon Stewart. Faye Bowman. God, Faye Bowman. Why was her name on my head?
I just passed her driving.
I know. Faye, shout out to you for bringing up the asbestos issue because it was an important issue that we probably didn't take notice of the first go around with that, looking at the capital budget. They had called out for particular schools. Sometimes they don't, but I think that's money well spent for the safety of kids. Is why I mentioned the sidewalks and all that, safety for our children, safety for the parents. So I think this is a good compromise. That's what capital budget's all about.
Further discussion? Mr. Kaides.
Yeah, Ms. Bowman touched on it. Just to clarify, the asbestos removal, I don't want to, start getting the calls tomorrow that, the schools are unsafe. And Mr. Odell's here to confirm. It's in the carpet. When they remove carpet, they'll need to schedule it, but we're complying with current asbestos procedure. So no worries out there. And also to reconfirm that the Board of Education is okay with taking this funding from their facilities assessment study implementation. So, don't call me tomorrow.
Further discussion? Mr. Kimmel.
Yeah, one final point I bring up every year for folks who are wondering, well, why don't we just spend more money? I mean, we're going into debt, why not bond for more money? The total requests that the different agencies that address the capital budget had to deal with was roughly about $46 million, somewhere around there, if I remember correctly, maybe more, and the final capital budget is around 29 million. We have certain parameters that we have to stay within based on our overall debt service and what the rating agencies like to look at when it comes to the solvency of the city and how the city will move forward going into the future. And so there's only a certain level of debt that the rating agencies will allow and keep us at a AAA rating. And we have always been within those thresholds. And that's why one of the reasons we've been able to maintain the AAA rating, which enables us to borrow the money that we're spending at such a low interest rate, okay? So there are very, very strict parameters on how much we can spend, and our capital budgets are roughly the same every year. I will say this year, and I credit the mayor for this, it's a little higher, our capital expenses, because we're aware that we've got to really begin to move on certain things in the city, and we're making a lot of progress, and now is not the time to slow down. But if you're ever looking at the time to look at the capital budget, just don't go into the various departments. Look early on in the financial analysis, and you'll see the debt ratios for per capita debt, however you want to look at it, market value debt, and we are in good shape, not only this year, but in years going forward. So that means we will be able to fund the Board of Ed's facilities transformation moving ahead. You just can't spend it all now. It won't work that way if anybody is wondering why we just don't borrow more. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Carries. Ms. Melendez, item E7E1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 7E, I'll be moving 7E1 and 2 together under the
Okay.
ordinance committee. Number 1, approve revisions to the Norwalk City Code, Chapter 103, Article 3, tax relief for the elderly and disabled homeowners. Item 72, approve revisions to the Norwalk City Code, Chapter 103, Article 3, tax deferred program for the elderly and disabled homeowners. This was something that we approved unanimously at our last council meeting, and it is, just to clarify for any confusion on why it's on our agenda this month, it apparently came to my attention that there were a couple of documents missing at our last meeting. So the document that's in our agenda this meeting is what was approved at the ordinance committee, and we just felt it was necessary to do it the right way after that came to our attention. I do believe that Mr. Saras is like something clarified now that it is
Yes.
on the agenda, and I think we can ask Mr. Stewart to come down
Mr. Stewart, if you'll step down to the mic, please.
to explain it.
We've already spoken about this before the meeting, and there's a figure on page 3 that addresses the threshold of, that says $40,000 in 2003 as being the amount that the gross adjusted income that a senior can't go over and be able to apply. And I just wanted clarification on that, only because by my calculations about the number that's affordable and that seniors should be allowed to go to is about $52,000, just based on my own experience and questions and research I had. And I thank you for already having clarified that before the meeting, but I would like that to be clarified, because if anybody sees the paperwork that's been following it like I have, they might be confused by that $40,000 figure.
Michael Stewart, assessor here in Norwalk. Basically, that 40,000 is part of the historic documentation of the ordinance, and we're maintaining that continuity while we add the new language that's at the end of the ordinance. So, about the time that the ordinance was originally issued back in 2002, the original income level that was set up for the deferral program, which is what we're talking about, was $40,000. Subsequent to that, they said the following year, 2003, that amount increased to $45,000. We added the language this year that thereafter it will be equal to the maximum local income level. And what that is the level associated with the state's maximum income. Each year around October, they send us a letter that said what's the maximum income that will be used to give credits to elderly people on the state program. And historically, the city has taken that income level and used the multiplier to determine what the level is that we're going to use here in the city of Norwalk. So in prior years, it was something like 114% for the maximum income. What we've done with this ordinance is increased it to 121.45%. And so that takes the 42,900 maximum state income. And when you multiply it by the 121.45%, you get that 52,100, which is now the maximum. And it's the same maximum that's going to be used for the Tier 2 elderly program. That's a part of the program where if you're under that income threshold, you receive a maximum benefit of $750,000 per year.
Thank you. That was a number I was hoping that we would come up with, considering even living in Fairfield County, we're a little bit different economics than outside of Fairfield County when you go by the state standards. So I'm very happy to see that we're at the number that I figured that we should be at right about now. So we're going to be seeing increases after that.
Yeah, that's correct, because typically each year, the state increases the income threshold, at least by the amount that Social Security increases. Sometimes they do more. And so each time the state increases that income threshold, both our tiers of the local elderly credit program get increased also. So you don't have to do any additional work, and we continue to keep pace with inflation and so, well, maybe not keep pace, but currently keep pace. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but we attempt to adjust it to the current condition.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you and to everybody here that's been working on it. Everybody knows it's near and dear to me, but to be up to that number is a great number, because a lot of times we are forcing our seniors are one of the groups, regardless of race or anything, that gets forced out of town, whether they get sick or they can't afford to keep their home. And to raise that threshold to be very competitive, considering we live in Norwalk and in Fairfield County, I appreciate your work and everybody here's work to get that number to where it should be. Actually, probably should have been 2 years ago, but it's exactly where it should be, and I appreciate all the hard work. Thank you for your explanation too.
You're welcome for the explanation, but I say that you all deserve the credit, because Mr. Kimball and Mr. Kennedy and others, and
I brought it up when I was a citizen, and everybody did something here before I got elected. Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
further discussion?
Thank you so much.
Seeing none, all in favor, please signify
Aye.
Aye.
7E 1 and 2. Aye, okay, so carries. Mr. Livingston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move items F1A and 1B together. 1A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a contract with Advanced Corporate Network, DBA Digital Back Office, for the implementation, support, and managed network services of the Municipal Area Network Project 3633 for a 5-year lease term for amount not to exceed $2,806,054, with an option of two-year extensions. City and library accounts noted the Board of Education funding through the state grant for network upgrades. And item 1B, to authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a memorandum of agreement with the Norwalk Transit District for the integration into the city municipal area network for as long as the municipal area network remains in operation, up to a maximum of 5 years, with the option of two-year extensions. This agreement is a replacement for the expiring 10-year agreement that has been in place, which established the municipal area network, which is a fiber optic network that connects all the city's facilities, including the Board of Education, the libraries, the police department, and all those various functions. And this vendor has received, great support and has been very supportive of the Board of Education and the city IT departments, and their pricing was reviewed and considered by the city. One of the most interesting and I think the best part of this agreement is that it's going to greatly increase the data capacity and bandwidth for the city agencies and the Board of Education, which I think will be a real positive for the city and particularly for the schools. When we heard at our committee meeting that Norwalk schools are significantly behind Greenwich schools, as an example, in terms of bandwidth, and this is going to go a long way to helping that. I will note one other aspect of this, which is that a good portion of the Board of Education funds and the library, Board of Education expenditures and the library expenditures will be reimbursed through the E-rate program, which adds up to about $1,250,000 rebate back to the respective agencies and the Board of Education.
Moved by Mr. Livingston. Further discussion? Mr. Hempstead?
Just a question, it might be Mr. Barron that can answer that. I can't remember how this is done. So on the E-rate reimbursement, how does the accounting work with it? Does the Board of Education get the stipends, the full stipends, and the E-rate goes to them and they? I'm kind of curious how this works. Do they get funded for the full amount? And take the money that comes from the
Typically what we do is like with the school construction
Does he want to be on the mic?
is that we get an authorization for the full expenditure, and then we get a reimbursement from either the state in the case of a school facility, or in this case, from the E-rate. And then the difference is what we actually go out and bond for. Now, in this case, these projects were already approved. And so the amount that we will pay for will be the net of the two, the gross less the E-rate reimbursement. Does that coincide with what you have, Frank?
Pretty much. Is the question about the procedure, or about the E-rate reimbursement amount?
I think where the reimbursement will end up going, but
I'm trying to figure out whether you figure the full amount in your budget, get the E-rate check and get it back to the city.
If we don't get reimbursed, then what do we do? Is that what we're asking? Or, I mean, we expect to get reimbursed. There's an application that goes out, hopefully be on time.
So what do you do with the reimbursement? I'll ask it that way.
That goes into the city coffers.
You go back in the general fund?
I'm not sure where it
Okay.
Yeah, see, I guess these are a little different because we have main account numbers that we are going to, in this resolution, we're simply asking
charge those account numbers. But we will only be paying for the net, the gross amount of the 5-year contract, net of the reimbursement. And so it's not a general fund issue because you see, I mean, there are two small amounts. You'll see the 01 accounts. Those are actually some funding coming from the general fund. But the majority of the fund is out of the 09 account, and that's the capital account. But I think what you're looking for is to say, are we paying the gross amount or are we only paying the net amount? And we are only paying the net amount. The gross amount of the cost of the 5-year contract net of the reimbursement. Absolutely.
I just wanted to know what the amount was that was attributed to the Board of Ed. That's why I was trying to, you know where I was headed with that, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Bonifant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and whatever I say, I know Mr. Livingston, he'll have to say something after this, because we went through in committee, there was a huge discussion on that, and Mr. Barron, the amount that was originally on our approval list was smaller, and then we clarified that money has to be there, and then you get reimbursed later. So there was a million plus there, but we had to change it to the 2. I think we have to lay out the whole thing, and then the city doesn't get reimbursed. The transit district doesn't get reimbursed unless they can. That's their own business. But 4 accounts are being put into this, and up to the Board of Ed can apply. They're going to have to lay out their part of it, and they're going to get some, whatever they get back, it's on the Board of Ed reimbursement formula, and the library will have to lay out their part of it from their account, and they may get some back too. But the city part and the transit district is on their own. They just want to piggyback with us, and they have to pay their share. So, yeah, it was very complicated, and I would say Mr. Livingston, had to do a lot more homework than the rest of us on this, so maybe he wanted to say something on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. As you know, the numbers were very confusing at the committee meeting, and we did ask for further clarification. And just to read out what you said, it's exactly that. And we had to give in the full number, the full amount, just so we could sign an agreement. And with the expectation, with the E-rate reimbursements, which even those are estimates, as I understand it, would be come back to the city and the Board of Education. So, I think we have the right numbers now.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of items 7F1 and 2, please, 1A and 1B, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Motion to adjourn.
So, wow, that was too fast.
I don't feel well.
You took it right from him. Motion to adjourn?
Aye.